New York City, one of the most visited and most desirable city break locations on the planet. A hive of bustling activity, iconic sights and attractions, and some incredible dining. A city synonymous with America and one seared into the consciousness of anyone who has grown up with even a slight interest in popular culture. Whether it's movies, TV, music, art or culture, New York has had a hand in shaping them all, making a visit to this incredible city a lifetime goal for literally millions of people. We love the place and make sure we visit as often as we can, but we can't help but notice it's getting a little pricey. And that is the understatement of the century. So we hatched a plan of seeing just how cheaply we could visit the city. After a long and grueling flight yesterday, arriving at the hotel after 3 AM, today we woke up to a winter wonderland, and with no real plans for our first full day, we just set about taking in the magical winter scenes, keeping the budget low, but the iconic New York City magic high, as we head out into the freezing city streets to enjoy New York City on a shoestring budget. You may have caught a glimpse from last night's Uber ride or the in-flight footage on the way in, but we tried to keep it subtle in the last video. But while we were barreling across the Atlantic, the heavens opened and blanketed New York in a magical coating of white fairy dust. After all our trips to the city, we have never managed to time a visit for snowfall, and to say we were excited is a huge understatement. We had checked in late last night and woke up still a little dazed after only a few hours of sleep, but it had snowed outside, so there was no time for lie-ins. Breakfast was included in our room rate, so we headed down to try out the options. A free grab-and-go breakfast was included in our room rate, or we could pay a little extra for a sit-down meal. As we were still pretty whacked from yesterday's exertions, we opted to pay the additional rate. This included an everything bagel and schmear, ticking off the first of our NYC food items. Overall, it was a good breakfast, and nice to actually have a little service after the horrible flight yesterday. The $10 including tax and tip, however, did not feel great value when we saw what we would have got for free on the grab-and-go option. We will be sticking to that from now on. Now let's take a more detailed look at the hotel we will be staying in. We had booked to stay in the Edison Hotel through our Fora preferred booking platform, and we have already deducted this from the budget in our first planning video. Booking through Fora gave us an incredible rate, some $200 cheaper than the really budget booking platforms such as Booking.com, and while being cheaper, our room also came with a few added perks. Breakfast is included for everyone at the Edison, so not really a perk, but the reduced rates and waived resort fees were a real boon. Perks are great, but you can never really beat cold hard cash removed straight from the room rate. One of the other perks listed was a free room upgrade. However, this is based on availability, and our room did not seem to be one of the upgraded rooms. However, it was larger than the standard king room options, with a good amount more space and a semi-decent view. We had not chosen the Edison for its views, but for the location, as it was right in the heart of everything. We hear a lot of people issuing their expert advice that visitors should not stay in Times Square, as it's just too busy, the dining options are overpriced, and no New York local would step foot in Times Square. We tend to find these experts are regurgitators, and the internet is full of them. These are people that hear advice and then just repeat it at people ad nauseum to make themselves seem knowledgeable. They are not people who actually travel and live the advice they are giving. After all our trips to New York, the one thing we have always found is the closer to Times Square you are, the easier the trip will be. Basically, it's not because Times Square is great. The advice to avoid the square is pretty sound. It's just pure geography. Times Square is just the most central location in the city, and it's nearer to most things than any other location, and it has by far the best subway links. Essentially, if you are in Times Square, you can get to any other location far more easily. While of course there is nothing wrong with not staying in Times Square, and for some the busyness of the square is just too much, but the advice given out is staying in Times Square will basically ruin your trip, and only complete noobs would stay here. And this is patently untrue. With our new booking partners, we really hope to be able to offer you some amazing deals in New York and other places, so if you want to take advantage of these fantastic rates and additional perks that we can offer, check out usatraveladvisors.co.uk and get in touch for a completely free, zero commitment proposal. Overall, for the price we paid, the Edison Hotel was perfect. The rooms are a little tired, well used is probably the best description, but they are spotlessly clean and fulfilled the needs we required for such a budget trip. We have even paid more in the past for much smaller, grottier rooms, and overall have no complaints. The room and hotel had everything we needed. After breakfast, we finally decided to head out and explore the city at approximately 10 AM. It was blisteringly cold out, but the night snowfall had already started to be cleared from around the city, so we made a dash for Central Park so we could see the park in its full winter finery. For both of us, this was a lifetime dream, and it was amazing to finally get to see the park with snow on the ground. The sky was a perfect NYC blue, and the crisp white snow was still perfect on the ground. With most of the meadows and gardens closed off for winter, the white blankets lay undisturbed and the park glistened with fairy tale perfection. We had geared up in running kit so we could move around the park fast, but in all honesty, the icy paths meant there was not as much running as we would have liked. But we still made our way around, checking out all our favourite spots in their new winter get-ups. The first stop was the Elf Snowball Bridge, past the snowball fields and the meadow, and then along the mall to the Bethesda Terrace, the lake, and of course Bow Bridge. The park was pretty busy, but we have seen it far worse, and considering the stunning winter scenery, we thought it would have been packed. However, as beautiful as it was getting hard to ignore the cold, and we needed to start heading back as the chill started to cut through our pretty inadequate running gear. As we headed back down the mall, past the Woolman Rink, and then down to the Home Alone Bridge, the temperature really started to plummet, as the sun had yet to reach this part of the park. The paths were treacherous, but we followed Kevin's route up to the Army Plaza, and then we popped into the Plaza Hotel to use the facilities and warm up a little, before heading back down 6th Avenue past Radio City, back to the hotel to warm up and get ready for the second part of the day. Another stalwart of bad internet advice we hear about New York is not to plan anything. Just go with the flow and take in the vibe. Don't use the subway and just walk everywhere and take in the city. This is usually people's laziness and pathological lack of planning shining through, and they want other people to be as disorganised as them to help justify their tardiness. New York is a big place, and getting around it and getting the most out of the city requires a little more foresight and planning than just going with the flow, whatever that really means. Some cities, just winging it can be fantastic, but New York just is not that kind of city. However, for today, we really had not come up with any concrete plans. We had a lot of packed schedules for the rest of our time, but today we had left it pretty open, mainly due to the forecast of snow, and us not knowing how badly the city would have been impacted. So, along with a few other reasons, we just hadn't come up with a cast iron plan for the day. So heck, let's just wing it and see where the flow takes us. It started off by taking us to a tourist highlight in the Ghostbusters Firehouse. Located down in Greenwich, this is a real icon of the city. And then just across the road is the Casa del Té, home of a certain iconic pop princess. We then headed across to Washington Square Park, where a small but almost daily Gaza protest was taking place, and we found a few movie locations such as the Sanctum from Doctor Strange and Will Smith's apartment from I Am Legend, and then further on into the East Village for Carrie's apartment and the friend's apartment, finally finding the other Sanctum from Doctor Strange. Really, we didn't have a huge aim, we were just wandering around and seeing what we came across, and on the whole, this was pretty unfulfilling, and we spent a lot of time just walking down bland streets. It really is better to know where you are going, rather than just hoping to happen across something interesting. Overall, there is nothing inherently wrong with just seeing where the mood takes you, and you certainly do not need a minute-by-minute itinerary, and maybe our achievements for the day would be your dream trip. But as you will see in the coming days, a lot more just happens when you are actually following a more preconceived plan. We know many people feel the opposite, and just being in New York makes for an amazing experience, but when our days are planned, we achieve so much more. Of course, be flexible and spontaneous, but have at least a rough idea of what you want to do that day. We had now been on the go for several hours, and the temperature was starting to plummet. It had been really cold this morning, with the needle dropping down to -5 or 23 degrees depending on your currency, but the day had brought warmer temps. But these were dropping off fast now, and we were in for some savagely cold nights coming up, -18 degrees Celsius at times, and that was starting to show itself. We decided shelter and food were in order, so we hopped onto the subway and emerged out into Little Italy, or at least the border between Italy and Chinatown. As we explored the area, we were bombarded with offers for cheap happy hour eats and drinks from welcoming Italian restaurants, eventually picking out one that could easily fit our budget requirements. This included a starter, a main and a glass of wine for $25, and this got another food ticked off our list with only a modest use of our budget. The meal was really good, with homemade bread and fantastic olive oil, a fresh and tasty bruschetta to start, and then a large helping of whatever pasta we had chosen. The wine was also really good, a large glass of one of several Italian wines, with us going for the Pinot Grigio and an excellent Cabernet Sauvignon. The angry and aggressive Italian nonna was a great touch, and she spent the meal berating her staff and bosses as a steady slew of customers came and went. A fun Italian experience at Lunella's on Mulberry Street. Despite not having done much today in terms of planned activities, we had been at it for quite a while and covered an impressive 32,000 steps. But the cold was starting to get to us along with the super late arrival earlier this morning, so as the city lights started to twinkle, we faded back into our room. We picked up some room drinks from our Dewan Reed and just had an easy evening recovering. We both felt this was a little wasteful, as well we were in New York and this stunning city was right outside the window. Surely we should head out and see it. But despite this feeling, our energy was too low to wrap up and head back out into the freezing night, so we ended up hitting the hay early, in the hope tomorrow could be a much more productive day. As ever, if you are not subscribed to the channel, make sure you click the button so you know when the next episode drops. If you like the video, please click like, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.